Esse jogo tem um potencial gigantesco para tirar você do Ark. Olá, eu sou a Matos e hoje estou aqui para te mostrar este jogo que tem um potencial gigantesco para tirar você do Ark. O jogo se chama Dune Awakening. É um survive de mundo aberto com elementos de MMO ambientado todinho no universo do filme Dune. Inclusive os produtores estão trabalhando com o pessoal que produziu o filme, então promete coisas muito fiéis. Além disso, a produtora de Dune Awakening é ninguém mais, ninguém menos que a Funcom, a mesma produtora do Conan Exiles, joguinho esse tão amado pela comunidade de Ark, inclusive por mim. E para falar um pouquinho sobre o que o Dune Awakening nos oferece, palavras do próprio diretor criativo.
So what's out there? I mean, worms, yeah, players?
Sandstorms.
What else?
Other players. Yeah, so the player, I mean, obviously Arrakis is all about the heat and the water. So the player, first of all, needs to be searching for water. They need to stay out of the sun, stay in black shade during the daytime, travel by night.
I love it.
That's what the Fremen say, right? That's what the Kitan al-Gaib says it in the book, right? Black shade by day, travel by night. So the player needs to worry about these things, think about the sunlight, think about where they are, but they also need water because that runs out really quickly without a still suit and you die very fast. So yeah, there's lots of ways in which to get water. You can explore dew fields and eat plant fiber to try and get water out of it. After a while you start to throw up because you can't really get too much water out of plants that way. And then the way I prefer to do it is to shoot enemies, take their blood, drink that.
You seek the secrets of the ever-shifting sands. Spice.
Arrakis is a test. Few survive it.
Open world crafting game, right? So players will craft their entire arsenal, right? So they'll be collecting resources, they'll be collecting stone, they'll be collecting metals like copper, iron, eventually forging steel, building up the equipment that they have at home. So they'll be crafting, all their weapons, all of their gear, all of their clothing, and they can of course craft themselves a base to live in, craft machines to help them craft bigger machines, which allow them to craft better weapons and so forth. Yeah, so we took what we started with in Conan Exiles, our other survival game. We brought that over, then we started to add to it, right? So we've now created a system for co-op building where you can place out holograms and other players can fill them in. So you work with your friends to build bases. You can also save your base as like an architectural blueprint that you can then sell to other players on the exchange, or you can give to your friends. So they, if you make something really cool. One of the things we saw in Conan Exiles that I really liked was that players were building the Taj Mahal. They were just building really cool buildings. And it's like, what if you could sell that to another player? That'd be cool, right? So another player might want to be able to just buy that blueprint off you and then place that out in the world and build it themselves. So we're really enabling this sharing and sort of the way the building system works, allowing it to be very cooperative. So the game has a full leveling system, right? And we do this thing we call combined arms, which is like we have melee, we have ranged, and we have abilities, and we also have vehicles, right? So players can use any combination of these in combat, right? So it's kind of creates this interesting dynamic. So you can learn abilities from the great schools of the universe and learn how to be a Bene Gesserit, compelling your enemies to come close to you so that you can stab them with a knife. And you combine so you're combining melee with abilities there, right? Or you can be a sword master and leap in with a knee charge, knocking people to the ground and then stabbing them. Or you can choose to be like a trooper and you use your Shigawai reel to pull you up like a grappling hook, to pull you to high places where you can shoot down on your enemies with sniper rifles and shotguns. So there's a large variety of weapons that you can craft through our intricate crafting system, in addition to these abilities that you learn as you level up your character. So you kind of have this freedom of choice, and that's really what Combined Arms is all about. It's sandbox combat. That's what we're trying to call it and what we're going for, right? You choose in character creation, you make a choice of who was your mentor when you were young. And then you choose one of the things, and that determines your set of starting abilities. But then when you play the game, you find trainers in the world. You have to do things for them, but then they'll eventually teach you some of the way, you know, the path that can take you down some of these skills and abilities, yeah.
You do.
Arrakis is a test. Few survive it. But the humans that do awaken.
Them.
Sandworms are like a tension mechanic in the game. We want you to be really worried every time you walk on the sand. So you really need to think about what you're doing. So there is no way to kill or defeat sandworms.
No,
the only thing
I
you can
cannot.
do, you just cannot. The only thing you can do is avoid the sandworms, right? So you craft yourself a thumper and place it out to distract a sandworm. Maybe you use it to lure a sandworm onto some friends of yours or some enemies,
Friends.
depending on how
As
you
one
feel.
does.
And the other thing you can do, of course, is craft yourself a vehicle. Like we have a range of vehicles in the game, including the iconic ornithopters, and players will be able to craft these, and you'll be able to use these to, of course, traverse safely, right? If you're in an ornithopter, you fly above. If you're on a sand bike or something like that, you can move quickly across the sand. Hopefully a sandworm won't get you if you time it right. Joined together with a grouping system. We have a ping system, so you can, obviously point out things to players. You will find different roles that you can assume based on the kind of combination of abilities you want to bring with you. And then you can heal your friends, of course, get them up when they get knocked down in combat, things like that. And then, of course, you go on journeys like we have a system called the journey system. You can go on those journeys together and sort of explore the mystique of the universe. Through that, we also have a contract system. When you go to trade posts, you'll be able to take contracts. Your friend and you can go out and explore and do these contracts together. We have small group play, we have guild play. It's all kind of what you'd expect to see in a social experience. I mean, we want players to be able to dip into it. So you start the game kind of lost in the desert, right? And then by the end of the game, maybe you're the next Baron Harkonnen. So as you play through the game,
And who doesn't want to be him?
He's a good-looking man.
Oh yeah. Mm.
As you make your way through the game, you progress and you sort of meet these factions in the world, right? The Atreides and the Harkonnen are at war. There's a war of assassins going on, as it's called. And as a player, you decide which side you want to help, which side you want to join. Then you start to partake in missions for those factions. And eventually, you work your way up through the ranks of the factions, and maybe you take on a position of power as well. So the politics are, they're designed to actually encourage players to develop their own politics around the sandbox systems, right? So we have this Landsrad. The Landsrad will demand that players do certain things. The factions need to work together or against each other to achieve these goals, right? So there's also this sandbox element to the politics. This kind of idea that, like when people have the same objective, but they're on opposite sides, it becomes a race between them to achieve that objective, and they'll do all sorts of dirty things to get to the top, right? You can play however you want. I mean, the idea is to be a sandbox and allow people to approach it how they like. We have one of the rules, one of the pillars of the game is expression and customization, and that's not just about visuals. It's customizing how you want to play the game. So it's really thinking about I really like to craft and just set up my little crafting setup and sell things on the exchange to other players. So you can do that. You can basically live your life as a crafter. You can also be an architect, as we talked about. You can be a pilot, a scout. You're not really heavily involved in the fighting, but you go out and you craft maps that you sell to other players as well of the world. A thing as a creative director, I like to say that we get a few aces. Every time we make a project, we get to make a few creative bets. There's a thing called the shifting sands, which is one of my most exciting, one of the things that makes me most excited about the game, and that is this location in the world. It's a full PvP area, and every week the Coriolis storm sweeps in and completely alters the landscape of this area. And I got to see that working for the first time very recently with full landscape changing and people able to play, and it's exciting to see these things coming online. And I think it's something people haven't seen before in a game. So I'm excited to let the audience in on it, you know.
Dune Awakening ainda está na fase dos betas fechados, inclusive se você quiser participar, vou deixar o link aqui na descrição do vídeo para você se inscrever, e não tem data para ser lançado. Depois de tudo isso que você acabou de ver, deixa aqui nos comentários. Você acha que tem ou não tem potencial para te arrancar do arco esse jogo? Se você quiser ver mais jogos da minha lista de desejos, deixa um comentário aqui também pedindo que eu traga mais vídeos como esse. Um beijo e um queijo, e até o próximo vídeo.